let's say, if you ask Gimli, the dwarf, you know, Gimli, but if you ask someone who is small, someone who is cebol, what is cebol? Someone who is short, okay? Dwarf. I'm using Gimli because dwarf, the dwarf warrior, okay? So if you ask Gimli how deep is the river, and then he jumped into the river, he would say that the river is so deep. He's drowning, right? Because he's obviously a dwarf. But if you ask Goliath, the giant, hey G, how deep is the river? Shallow, cetek, right? Dalam nggak Goliath? Enggak, cuman segini, cuman sekaki gitu kan ya. So then what happens? Which one is right? Well, if you ask them, they will insist I'm right, right? Because Gimli, the dwarf, he measured the depth of the river based on himself. He feels that this is too deep because I'm drowning. He feels that he is right. Betul? Dia ngerasa, benar nih, gua tuh tenggelam loh. Ini tuh dalam banget gitu sungainya. But Goliath will similarly insist, gua yang benar, I'm the one who's right. Why? Look at it, it's just up here on my feet. Because he measures it by his own self, from himself. Dia mengukur kedalaman dengan dirinya sendiri. Now, all of us knows, to measure the depth of a river, you don't base it on your height, right? You use a what? Alatnya apa sih? Saya nggak tahu. What is the measurement? What is it? The measurement tape? I don't know. I think it's called, let's say it's like some sort of a device to find the depth of the river, right? Depth finder. Is that it? Yeah, I think. So you use an objective measure, right, to know the depth of the river. You don't use yourself. Similarly today, we found a lot of people sometimes will insist that they are right because they use themselves as the measure. Because they don't look upon the objective standard that is the Word of God. And when people use themselves as the measure, and the other person, the opposite, use their own measure, you know what happens? Debat kusir. You know what happens? Each of them will insist that their version is true, right? And it will not end well. Because each will feel that they are right and you are wrong. So today, the message is about how, as the people of God, we live in this culture where everyone feels that what they're feeling is true. When in fact, the truth is in God's Word. How do we deal with these people who will put their feelings, their assumptions, their worldviews before the Word of God? Let's open our Bible to Leviticus chapter 19. We will look from verse 15 to verse 18. If you remember, church, this is the second part about about the characteristics of God's people. Okay, so 2 weeks ago we talked this. We went through this text, the same text. We went through from the few verses before. I said to you that to be holy, right? The people of God is characterized by holiness. Holy means what? In the previous sermon, we have went through that to be holy means to show mercy, to speak the truth, and to care for the less fortunate. If you remember, I said to be holy means as simply as doing small things well and doing right things often. Remember that? Yeah? So very simple. Jadi kudus itu melakukan hal yang kecil dengan baik dan melakukan hal yang benar lebih sering. Yeah? And today we continue that. 2 more characteristics. What does it mean to be holy? Especially in the context of our days, when sometimes people will put their feelings first before the truth. So let's look together. Let me read from Leviticus chapter 19, kitab Imamat pasal yang ke-19. I don't know, Leviticus, Imamat sounds so far, right? Because like the other is Matthew, see, so close, right? But Leviticus, Imamat, so far, I don't know why. Okay. You shall do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. Verse 17, 18. You shall not hate your brother in your heart, but you shall reason frankly with your neighbor, lest you incur sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Amen. Right off the bat, first point. To be holy means to fight for justice. If you look at verse 15, verse 16, it begins like this. You shall do no injustice in court. Now, you have to remember, court at that time and court today is very different. Pengadilan zaman dulu sama zaman sekarang beda. Okay? Court at that time, court today is very formal, right? You've got the judge, you've got the defendant, you've got the attorney, you've got the
DA.
Lawyer, attorney, a lawyer, the attorney, the defendant. Most likely, the judge did not know the defendant. Right? It's a very professional job. He has to be objective. You did something bad. You come to my court. I'm going to evaluate your case objectively. Maybe you have the jury, right? And then we give you the verdict. So very professional, very systematic, very formal. No connection, no relationship. But at that time, court in ancient Israel is very communal, not formal. Which means the ones who are appointed as judge in ancient Israel is not like professional judge who has a law degree, but they will put elders, okay? Elders of the city, para tua-tua kota. Okay? So they'll find the oldest, the wisest, the one who knows the Torah a lot, and they'll put him to judge matters. That means those judges probably will know everybody in the village, or in the city, or in the province, whichever, okay? Therefore, when someone comes into court, most likely the judge knows the defendant. Nangkap Bapak Ibu ya? Jadi hakimnya itu kenal, karena lingkupnya kecil. Communal, not formal. So because the judge probably know the defendant, know the lawyer, know the attorney, know the witnesses, perhaps you can easily get swayed by your emotions. Oh, I know this guy. He's so nice when he was small. I could not believe that he would steal the watch. See? Right? Because you know him, understand? That's why here, Leviticus 19 says, hey judges, you should not be partial. Jangan mandang muka, gitu ya. Jangan, apa bahasa Indonesianya? Alkitabnya saya lupa. But you shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great or the rich. Because we know, right? Let's say you are the elder and then the defendant is someone rich. You might be thinking, oh, he's a rich man. I should be more careful. Maybe if I give him a lenient sentence, maybe he will help. Maybe his son will marry my daughter. You know, so about playing favors, right? We will be tempted to gain favors from the rich. Oppositely, let's say the defendant is someone poor, someone weak. Usually what happens is, oh no, he got in trouble. He's not making much. He's struggling. I don't want to be the judge who gave bad punishment to poor people. I want to help him. Which is something which is good, right, in itself, to show compassion. But in the court, truth and justice must be prioritized. Because a sin is a sin. A crime is a crime. And the Bible is saying, hey, elders, those who wield the authority to reward and punish, you must not become partial, but you must uphold the truth. You must pursue justice. One of my favorite philosophers, Peter Kraft, he put it like this. I like what he said, and he put it in such a beautiful language, and it will make me sound smart. Okay, it's like this. Okay, this is Peter Kraft. He said, "Be egalitarian regarding persons, be elitist regarding ideas." Perhatikan kata-katanya. He's saying, let me put it in a more day-to-day language. Everyone is equal, but not every idea is equal. And then you say, why don't he just say that? Well, if he said like that, he won't be a philosopher, okay? So, be egalitarian means everyone is egalitarian, equal. Okay? Same dignity. Doesn't matter whether you are a Christian, a non-Christian, you are rich or poor, whether you drive a Bentley or you drive a Beca. Everyone is the same, have basic rights, and we have to respect and honor people, no matter where they come from. Egalitarian. But just because we respect people doesn't mean we have to give up our positions of truth. Every idea, every worldview, every pandangan, every point of view must be evaluated with the truth. And of course, our standard of truth is the Word of God. The problem with our world today is this gets flipped. Right? Today's world, all ideas the same. All religions the same. All marriage the same. Heterosexual, homosexual the same. Right? Same. All ideas accepted. But people, because they accept all ideas, some people not the same. What happens is the truth gets ransacked, people get exploited. When it's supposed to be, people gets honored, and the truth, all the worldviews get evaluated. So we must not fall into that. Everyone is equal, yes, but not every idea is equal. If we flip it, then we will fall into a dangerous trap. But God doesn't stop with the elders or the court. Okay? He also said like this in verse 16. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. Now, here's what's going on. God is saying, hey judges, you must not be partial, you must be impartial, right? Kamu harus adil. Jangan pilih-pilih, jangan pandang muka, impartial. But all the rest, all the people of Israel, you guys also, you have to be impartial. You don't gossip around, basically. Don't slander. Slander means simply to say something untrue about someone behind his back. Gossip, misalnya, ya. Why is it important for this commandment to be put in Leviticus 19? Again, the context is the key. I want you to imagine this. Court at ancient Israel, the decision depends a lot on eyewitnesses. Keputusan dalam pengadilan sangat bergantung dari saksi mata. Because obviously, they haven't found CCTV, or DNA testing, or lie detector. You know, they don't know Sherlock Holmes, or Detective Conan. Oh, you know, the point is, they don't have all this knowledge that we have now. So they will rely on eyewitnesses. Now imagine if those eyewitnesses has a hatred towards the defendant. And he will go around saying false things, saying bad things, even though it's not true. And when the date of the court is come, the judges will hear all the false stuff. Bapak Ibu mengerti ya maksudnya ya? That's why here it says, you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. Which means, if you have something true, you have to say it so that you can save your neighbor. Similarly, don't say something false, because what you say can be used against that defendant. It might mean life, a good sentence and bad sentence for him. And recently, I really can't imagine. I think like 2 days ago, I read an article how someone who's been in jail, I think 3 or 4 teenagers, when they got put in, and after 30 plus years, because of DNA testing, they've been found out not guilty. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? You spend 20, 30 years innocent in jail, lost just like that. Because, well, poor judgment. So you understand the weight of what Leviticus is trying to say. The point, church, is this. The point of you shall pursue justice is we have to train our hearts to love the truth and to speak the truth. We have to train our commitment to pursue the truth. We must not sell the truth at all costs. Now, to show love is good. To show compassion is commendable. I would say to show patience and love and all those warm things, warm feelings, they are needed, especially now in this dark world that is getting darker and more isolated. We need love, yes. God is love, amen. But love is not God. Ya Bapak Ibu, Allah itu kasih. Kasih bukan Allah. All you needed is not love. That's a song, right? All you needed is God. It's different. Love doesn't win. God wins. Because if you love without the truth, it is a dangerous life. Love without truth in relationship is the death of truth. The parents, you will know about this, right? If you just give love to your children, no discipline at all, they will feel loved, but they might not grow. They might not become a better person. Because all that they're asking, you provide. You give unconditionally. Love is important, but love without truth is dangerous. We must uphold truth as well. Secondly, so to be holy means to fight for justice, to love the truth. Secondly, verse 17 and 18 goes like this. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. It's interesting. Before they said slander. I think you only slander people that you hate. Biasanya kita memfitnah orang yang kita benci, betul? You say bad things or false things about people that you don't like. That's why there's a connection here. So God is saying, hey, don't slander. Wait. But in fact, I'm going to go deeper. Don't hate. Because that's the source of your slander. So let me go on. Don't hate your brother, but you shall reason frankly with your neighbor, lest you incur sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge. You see, those two take vengeance in Hebrew means to use violence to handle perceived wrong. To use violence to handle perceived wrong. When we hate, that's what we do. We use violence. Verbal, physical, emotional, spiritual. There is such thing as spiritual abuse, right? To address perceived wrong. When I feel to be wrong, I use violence. grudge, to bear a grudge, has to do with cherishing vengeance. So you guard a hurt. Saudara itu memelihara sakit hati. Saudara itu ngasih makan, menjaga banget ya, kejengkelan. That's what the word means. Now, before I go on, let me say a few things about resentment, because obviously it's talking about hatred and resentment. You know, hatred or resentment is a sin with nasty effects. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say Andy. There's nobody named Andy, right? If you are, I'm sorry, they usually. Let's say Andy, he is struggling in school. And he began to resent, he began to dislike the smart people. Sometimes it can happen, yeah? The lazy one hates the the diligent one. The lazy one hates the diligent one. Now, at the beginning, Andy just disliked all the smart people in his school. But later on, he begins to develop this thinking. Being smart is not everything. The most important things in life can't be learned in a book. Those nerds don't have a clue what life is in the real world. You see? Because he feels like I'm not as smart, he has to humiliate or put down the smart people because he hates. Another example. Is it true that sometimes ugly people don't like beautiful people? Envious maybe, yeah, envious. Maybe in the beginning you start, I don't really like her. But then it can graduate to become everyone who is beautiful is fame. Benar gak sih? Bisa kayak gitu gak sih? Everyone who looks so pretty, hypocrite. Sombong, arrogant, vain, palsu. And then you close off relationships with that person simply because you are different, simply because you nurse resentment. See what's going on here is like this. When you nourish resentment, two things happen. Number one, you divide life into us versus them. Us meaning people like me versus people unlike me. And then you start to label people like me good, people unlike me bad. Or worse, you start saying in order to feel good, you need to make others bad. Do you see how it can grow into something dangerous? And secondly, what happened, I just said to you, when you nurse resentment, you may not face your insecurity well. Yeah? Let's say, use the example of Andy. He is insecure because he doesn't perform well academically. But rather than looking at that as he can learn from someone smart, someone diligent, he would say, no. Being not good at school is something I'm proud of. If I'm good at school, that means I'm not good at, sometimes people would make this an opposite. One is, book smart and street smart, right? So no. Book smart people, bad. Theory only. I am the street smart people, the successful one. But then, that only avoids the issue. Somehow then, you become proud of something you're not good at. See the danger there? Instead of fixing your mistake, your weakness, by learning from people who has that quality that is better than you do, you start running away from the issue and defend your position so strongly that you make it a pride. Sometimes, I don't know, people who fail, I will say like this, people who fail doesn't make them failures, right? Orang bisa gagal, Tapi bukan berarti orangnya gagal. Sometimes when we fail, we feel like we have to put down other people who make it. But when we know that, no, just because I fail doesn't make me bad. Doesn't make me a failure. That's an identity language right there. Just because I fail, then I fail. I try again. I ask God for strength. I do something different now. Did you see how that the hatred, the resentment can infect the soul in such a way that twists everything? Saudara bisa melihat kalau kebencian itu bisa mengotak-atik jiwa kita sehingga semuanya kebalik-balik gitu. North becomes south, left become right, true become wrong, wrong become true because of resentment. But here, here God is giving an interesting remedy for hatred. The context in verse 17, you shall not hate your brother in your heart, but you shall reason frankly. The context is this person here, he gets hurt. Okay? He gets hurt. I don't know by what offense. But God is saying this, if you are hurt, if you are the victim, you must go to your neighbor and rebuke, argue, correct, plead, reason together. This is so beautiful. God requires those who are a victim to correct the person so that he will be released from the burden of hatred. That's why in the next sentence it says, you shall reason with your neighbor lest, kalau enggak nih, gitu, lest, if not, you incur sin because of it. You become guilty. You become guilty of, you will be guilty of the sin of hatred. That's what God is saying. You become guilty of the sin of hatred if you don't say something to the people who offend. That means God will hold the offended person guilty as the offending party, because the offended party fails to try to do this. Remember, there's a verse in the Proverbs 27:5 says like this: better is open rebuke than hidden love. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. To put it simply, when we learn to rebuke, we have saved ourselves from the sin of hatred. Dengan menegur, seseorang sudah menyelamatkan dirinya dari dosa kebencian. Sometimes I think our relationship with people is like cars, you know. Cars, as time goes by, you know, they will have leaks, right? We'll have scratches. Things will break down, right? It's just inevitable. It's just, because you use the car in Surabaya, Indonesia. You have potholes. You have bad conditions, and things happen, right? And the cars, when you bought it the first time, it's shiny, it's cool, it's perfect, and then when you have driven it for 10 years, it's not as good as before, but it's not bad, it's just different, you see. Different, because things happen. The point is, it's not to stop things from happening, right? Because obviously you can't avoid every potholes. You can't stop people from scratching your car unless you put, I don't know, a bubble or something. But that doesn't make sense. Or you put electricity when someone touches it off. But that doesn't either. Things will happen, right? But the key is when the car has some leaks, has some problem, you fix it right away, right? You do something about it when it's still small. Relationship is the same. As relationships goes by, you will have little ruptures here and there. Maybe in the beginning it's just small things. From zero being small issue 10 being big issue. Maybe in the beginning, your arguments with your friend or your spouse is just issue level 1, level 2. Small rupture. Kesetnya sedikit, gitu ya. Small scratch. Small leak. There's a weird sound, but so small. But you don't handle it. So you just let it go. We'll fix it later, right? And what happens? Because and every time you want to speak, you want to reason, you want to correct people, your spouse, your friend, your parents, whatever it is, you might feel, I don't waste of time, right? You might say, it's not worth fighting about, I know exactly what he is going to say, so you avoid. And that 1 and 2, in the beginning, becomes 4 and 5, and then becomes 8 and 9, and then game over. Relationships break down. So I always wonder, ada orang mulai in the beginning of a relationship, they can say, I cannot live without you. So romantic. But in the end of the relationship, if you are there, I cannot live. Why is it from here? What happens from here to there? Right? Those little things. Love doesn't magically disappear. It disappears when you don't handle the small stuff. Number 1, to not nurse hatred. And number 2, obviously, very important, the next verse, last of the verse, to love. To love. In the end, that's the most powerful weapon. It says that true love breaks all the spells, right? Which means love basically is the most powerful weapon. It's powerful, it's aggressive, it can kill everything. It's not direct power, but it's God's power. Pak Yakub put it like this. Arguments, teguran, rebukes, just keep your heart from hatred. What can change your heart is love. Teguran hanya menjaga hati dari kebencian. Yang bisa mengubah hati adalah kasih. So if you just stop at criticize, rebuke, even though it might be a true criticism, okay, there you are late all the time. It is true. But if you just stop at rebuke and you don't have love, it will only a matter of time. You won't be able to hold it together. And how can we love people who hurts us? How can we love people who is violent or who is aggressive to us? Well, we can only look to God. That's our only hope. Because if you look at people, you will be disappointed. If you look at situations, you will get hurt as well. But if you look to God, things can always go better. Kemarin saya bilangnya juga, lihat orang mudah kecewa, lihat situasi mudah putus asa, lihat Tuhan selalu ada harapan. We look to God and we remember, don't forget that the heart of the gospel is loving your enemies. Romans 5, right? While we are enemies, while we are sinners, Christ died for us. And what is interesting, finally, this is the commandment of God. You shall love. It's always very hard for me to understand, God, how can you command love? I've said this before, and just going to give you a statement. It means if God commands love, that means love is something you can choose to do, not something you've made to feel. Kasih, kalau Tuhan memerintahkan kasih, maka kasih itu sesuatu yang bisa Anda pilih, bukan sesuatu yang Anda tunggu rasakan. It's difficult. No, it's not difficult. It's impossible. That's why we look to the grace and the love of God. We look to the love of God as a fuel, as a source, as an example. We hold on to that love. So can we love other people, so that we don't slander other people, so that we say the truth about the people. I'd like to close with this final quote by an author, John Luke. He said like this: how we love others, particularly other Christians, reveals how we love God. Our love for each other is an indicator of the place God is holding in our hearts. Kasih kita kepada orang lain, khususnya kepada orang Kristen, menunjukkan apakah kita mengasihi Tuhan. Kasih kita kepada orang lain adalah ukuran Tuhan itu di mana di hati ini. It's challenging, ya, challenging. That's why we trust Him. Holiness, if I can summarize with this, holiness champions the truth, but acts with grace. Jesus, full of grace and truth. The way we handle different voices around us, different difficult people, difficult friends around us, difficult world, is we become the people of God who displays this twin weapon, truth and love, justice and grace, God's truth and God's love. And Jesus is the perfect embodiment of both. And those who trust Him can have His power, and He's given us the strength to act like that. It's not easy, but we trust Him to work mightily in us. Let's pray.